Welcome to the Power in Motion podcast, the show for women who want to develop a kinder relationship with their body so you can feel healthy, happy, and confident without restricting food, doing torturous exercise, or constantly worrying about the number on the scale. I'm your host, Kim Hagel, size-inclusive fitness specialist and certified non-diet health and life coach specializing in body image. This podcast is here to provide weight-neutral, health at every size aligned information and coaching on sustainable habits and mindset shifts so you can feel your very best in the body you have right now. Let's lace up our runners and go for a walk while we chat. Well, hello, my friends, and welcome back to the Joyful Movement Show. This is episode 91, and this episode is for you if you've ever found yourself comparing yourself to a previous fitter version of you. Like maybe after taking a break from fitness for whatever reason, and you come back and you find yourself saying things like, how did I get so out of shape? Or, man, I really let myself go. I should never have stopped because now things just feel so hard. I think that's something that so many of us, myself included, can relate to. And I'm really excited to dive into that with you today. But I am also very excited to introduce you to my new, sometimes co-host, Lisa McDonald. Say hello, Lisa.
Hello, everybody. Hello, Kim. Thank you for having me.
Oh, I'm so happy you're here. A little context for our listeners. I'm coming up on my 2-year anniversary of the podcast later this month, which is exciting. And I'm always reflecting on what I want to do next with the show and how I can bring more value to the show. And one of the things that's been on my mind for a long time is having somebody else to talk to. I think there's so much value in sharing experiences and in just connection and conversation. And it's just, I find a lot easier to speak openly and candidly and conversationally. So I've had this idea for a co-host for some of my episodes, at least for quite a while, but I was waiting for the right person to come along. And Lisa has been in my world for a few months. She's a client. We've been working together in a personal training capacity. And not only do I just really like her as a person, I think she has a perspective and a lived experience that's going to add a lot of value to the show. So I'm really excited to welcome you here today, Lisa. Why don't you introduce yourself? Tell us a little bit about you.
Okay. When Kim asked, I was like, I'm sorry, what? And then we talked for a while and she told me about her ideas. And I was like, we had a huge conversation. And then I said, oh, so basically this conversation could potentially have been something you would refer to for future use. She's like, yes, exactly. I'm like, oh, okay, I guess I could do that. I am Lisa. I am a partner and a mother of 2 little boys. They're 3 and 5 and they're completely wild. I live in a small town. I work as an insurance broker where I'm lucky enough to work with some amazing people. And I love my town and I try to, be social and have fun and try to balance parenting and social life. And I'm just getting back into like taking care of myself, I guess. So that's why I've been seeing Kim and I'm trying to, make time for me. And Kim is what I committed to at this point, and it's the best choice I've made for myself in a very long time. So I've had some really great conversations so far, and I really like what she's doing. So here I am.
That's so nice of you to say. And I know there's been times when we've been working out where you said like the conversations can be a little bit distracting from the exercise. So maybe this will be a much easier way for us to chit chat.
No doubt. Absolutely.
So I know that you just said prioritizing yourself again was important to you, and coming back to fitness was one of the ways that you could do that. So it's kind of timely that we're having this conversation about the self-judgment and self-criticism that sometimes comes up after we've taken a hiatus from fitness. And did you find that came up for you at all as you started getting back into it?
Oh, absolutely. And I was never like fit, but I've always been, I've always played sports. I've always been active. And then in the last 5+ years, I've been full-time parenting. I've like played social slow pitch, and like I haven't even played hockey in years, and I did that growing up my entire life. So after having a couple of kids, you went through a pandemic, you start moving and you're like, oh man, this is hard. Like chasing your kids, eventually they're going to get faster than me and it's going to happen way too soon. So I knew I had to do something. And I'm like, I used to be able to do this. And I started being like, what did I like, how did I get to this base? And it felt pretty terrible, like feeling really, down on yourself because what do you do? What's next? How do you get started? And like after trying things in the past and never sticking with it, I was like, I'm gonna have to try something else, I guess.
Mm-hmm. But it seems like such an uphill battle, right?
Huge uphill battle to get back to before. And
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I'm never gonna be what I was at 25.
Well, I think that's something that we can fall into a trap of easily too, right? Is thinking that like aging isn't a thing and we should be as fit as we were when we were 18 or 25, whatever the case may be.
Yeah.
I know you're not alone in this. The reason I thought I would have this conversation is because this exact thing came up in our membership, in the What Moves Me membership. One of the clients, we've been experimenting this month with adding more movement into our workday. So this particular woman started using her lunch break to take a bit of a walk. And as a bit of backstory, she's had some medical issues, recent surgery, and hasn't been moving her body very much for obvious reasons. But now she's feeling better. And through this experiment, she's getting outside most days and going for a walk. But she noticed that when she did that, it felt great to get outside and get some fresh air, and it helped give her some energy and renewed vitality for the afternoon. But there was all of this negative self-talk, like, oh my God, this used to be so much easier. I'm literally going for a 5-minute walk and it's so hard. I'm out of breath. How could I let myself get so out of shape? It's going to be so hard to ever get back to that level. And it just turned into this like real negative talk where she was feeling really down on herself. And I said to her, well, how is that affecting your desire to keep going? Right. And that's the thing we don't realize, is that, oh, that actually doesn't make moving my body feel very fun.
No, not at all. It makes you kind of want to go hide in your basement, realistically,
Mhm.
right? Like, if a walk is a struggle, then what am I going to do? Like, what can I do?
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah. If I can't even do this, then what's the point of even trying?
exactly.
Right.
Exactly. And actually, I felt that way before too, because during the pandemic, it was, I had a baby in October before of 2019. And so
Mhm.
then spring of 2020, it was like, well, everybody knows what it was like. It was like, you got to hide in your house. So a few months go by and my sister and I started walking again. And when we first got it started, I was like, this is terrible. Like,
Mhm.
I feel awful. And like, the more we went, the better it felt, of course. And I'm like, I have to keep going, because if I ever get to this point again, I'm going to be so mad, like so pissed with myself.
Yeah. Yeah. And so do you feel like you kind of forced yourself to keep going then? Was it kind of a bit of willpower and pushing yourself to
We
push
did a
yourself?
little bit, yeah, a little bit at first, but then also it was really great to have an excuse to hang out with my sister for a while. So that trumped the walking. So that was better. But I've done that before. I've been like, oh, I'm out of shape, or oh, I keep gaining weight, and you do something crazy like join CrossFit that I was not capable of doing to begin with. And I mean, I did it, and I felt I was strong enough, but not like I didn't have the endurance. And I didn't injure myself in any way, shape, or form, but it wasn't for me. I didn't keep it up because it was uncomfortable and it just wasn't the right place for me. And like, it just wasn't it.
Right. And that was the thing, is when we come at moving our body from a negative place and comparing ourselves and judging ourselves, I think it can go one of those two ways, right? Either
Mhm.
we lock ourselves down in the basement and do nothing because we're
Mhm.
like, well, it's just, I'm so far gone from that fitter version of myself. I'll never get there. So why even try? Or we push ourselves to do things that are really hard and beyond our capabilities, almost punishing ourselves and pushing ourselves because we have to get back to that version of ourselves. Neither
Yeah.
one really work out all that great. And I mean,
No,
I
the
know
CrossFit wasn't it.
it wasn't it for you. And I know I've done this too. Like, I actually caught myself in a trap of this recently. All my listeners know that I'm a runner, but I've had an injury, like a long lasting, really frustrating injury. And my pattern with it over the last year has been periods of rest where I try to give it time, let it heal, but then I come back to running and I like just go out and try and do a 5K. Well, sure enough, it hurts. And I'm
No
back
way.
where, right? Duh. But I found myself like unpacking this and going like, but I've always been a runner and I should be able to just get out there and do what I've always done. And I'm still in shape. Like, why can't I just go out there and pick up where I left off? And yeah, not a really helpful mindset in terms of getting back to that fitness. It's not helping me get where I want to go.
Oh, for sure. When I heard you say should there, like I
Yeah.
remember the should. Like, oh
Yeah.
yeah, I used to be able to do that. Like, sure, I've never been fast, but why can't I do that now? Like, why is it so heavy
Yeah.
or whatever, whatever the thing is? And it's like, why can't my body do it now when it should be able to? Well,
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And like I say to my clients, whenever I hear the word should, it's like that's your red flag that you're judging yourself, right? You don't get too far when you should all over yourself.
yeah, there should like yeah. I'm sure I've said to you, this shouldn't be so hard.
Mm-hmm. 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 And another thing I noticed is when I was looking at my own case, anyways, we have a tendency to see our past through rose colored glasses. Right. Like I look back at this previous fitter version of myself. Like I'm thinking even back like 5 years before I had my youngest son. Um, and I think, yeah, everything was so much easier. I was stronger and I was able to do pretty much anything I wanted to do. And it was easy. And it's easy to forget that I also had a disordered relationship with food and exercise. I was exercising 2 hours a day. I still got injured, right? And I was obsessed with exercise and eating, and it was not the life that I wanted to have, right? So when I think
Yeah.
about that level of fitness, like, well, it's just not really realistic with the lifestyle I want to lead these days.
Oh, for sure. And you can go like people might enjoy going and spending all that time in the gym, but are they even considering the rest that they're missing out on? I've always been the total opposite, being like, don't need to go to the gym. I'd rather just go have a beer with my friends on the patio somewhere. And I mean, I've had lots of delicious beers on patios with friends. So, but also my body was younger then. And, you know, felt better in the morning too, I
Right.
imagine.
You could probably do both successfully
Yeah.
at
Yeah.
that
Could
age.
probably balance it a little bit better than now.
Mhm, mhm. Um, I put this quote up on my personal Facebook recently, and I pulled it out for today's episode because I thought it really related. And what it says is, I used to think I could antagonize myself into being a better me. It turns out that being hard on yourself doesn't motivate, it anchors you in place. It was when I decided to love myself without condition that I really began to grow. It's good. Like how many times, like think back in your own life, how many times have you tried to antagonize yourself or be hard on yourself to get towards the goals you set?
Mhm. Yeah. And it doesn't go very far. Like it's not a very good motivator because it just is either like I don't know. I find either you try really hard and it's like just hurting and it doesn't feel good, or you just get mad and you bury it and you just say, I'm not doing it because
Yeah.
for whatever
Or it
reason.
does work. Like there to a certain degree, like I'd say for pretty much my whole life, I have been hard on myself and I've pushed myself really hard. And it does work to a degree. There's a lot of things that I've accomplished in my life through being really hard on myself, but it really kills the joy of the
Oh, yeah.
journey.
Not nearly as enjoyable.
Hmm.
No, not as fun.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So I got some tips.
Let's hear them. Everybody wants a good tip.
Yeah. So if you've ever found yourself feeling judgy towards yourself and comparing yourself to a previous fitter version of you, and that's keeping you stuck or causing you to engage with movement in an unkind way, the first piece of advice I have for you is just to notice. Take pause and notice. I always talk about our thoughts are they're just sentences that are passing through our brain, right? We have 60,000 thoughts a day. Most of them are garbage. They're not necessarily true. So when these thoughts come up that you've let yourself go and it means something about you and you're a shitty person because you've fallen off the wagon, try to take a little bit of a pause from the thoughts and just notice that they are happening and be curious. I have found it helpful to name this critical part of me. I call her critical Chrissy. So when I'm having all of those negative thoughts and they're really loud in my head, rather than believe it, I try to take a second and go, oh my goodness, Chrissy is really loud today. I wonder what's going on there. What's that about? And then the second step is to meet those critical thoughts with compassion. Offer some self compassion. So notice that they're happening. And instead of acting on them, instead of believing it, instead of making it mean something about you, offer yourself some compassion. The antidote to criticism is self compassion. So talking to yourself like you would a friend who was in a similar situation. Can you think, Lisa, in your own case, when you started working out, what you might say to yourself to meet you with compassion when you're having those judgmental thoughts?
Like you said, like even just mentioning it like Chrissy, and then like if you had a friend like Critical 50, you would never shit on her like you'd shit on yourself, ever. And even though I am like, I try really hard not to fall into the diet trap because I know better, but I also am terrible at moderation. And that gets me probably more than the movement. It's like, that makes it feel terrible. Why did you do it to yourself? But the idea of like withholding, you're not eating something later. I'm past that. So that's good. But it doesn't mean I won't, eat less for dinner and binge after dinner.
Yeah.
Right? You have that snack you don't want later, but it's balanced. And then, you're hard on yourself when you go to bed. You're like, that was completely unnecessary. What was the point of that? But meeting myself with compassion, I probably just need to, allow, I hate that word in this context, but, be easier on yourself earlier on, because then you will be satisfied and you'll have what you need to nourish yourself then, as opposed to eating all the crap later because you didn't eat that dinner or whatever else it is.
Mm-hmm,
I
mm-hmm.
think it's more like that eating for me than movement.
Yeah. Yeah. And then, well, I like to say moderation is just a different form of restriction. It's just restriction, right? So when things like that happen, when you eat past fullness, you have more than you should, or you eat a food that doesn't agree with you, and you go to bed not feeling well, what if you were to say to yourself, okay, that happened. Tomorrow's a new day.
That's true. I'm pretty good at the tomorrow the new day business, but the acknowledging it and like just letting it go faster is harder.
Yeah. Yeah. And that doesn't mean to stuff down the feelings that go along with that, right? Like there might be some feelings of disappointment in yourself, some feelings of guilt. And that was my next point, is sitting with those feelings and neutralizing them, but then also going like, yes, I regret that choice, but it doesn't mean that I'm a shitty person.
Yeah. Does
right?
not
Like,
connect to your work. Yeah.
No.
Doesn't
Like
make
if
you
your friend did it, what would you say to your friend? Like, okay,
whatever.
yeah,
Like,
no big
acknowledge
deal.
that it made you feel bad, and then be like, oh, maybe I don't need to eat that. I don't know. Whatever it is. Next time.
Yeah, exactly. And going back to this member's case with returning to walking after having a medical issue and surgery, when I reminded her of all of that on our coaching call, she kind of went, oh, yeah. I said, like, you have to kind of remember you had other priorities for several months. Like, can you hold some compassion for that person who was not well for quite a while and who needed to place her priorities in other things, right? You had to look after your physical health, your mental health. Like, that was important. You were doing the best you could at that time.
Absolutely right. Yeah. Give yourself some compassion like you would a friend. Maybe that's it, right? Treat yourself how you treat others a little bit better.
Yeah. I had to do it myself as I'm returning to running, right? Like, I'm disappointed that I can't run as much as I used to. I don't feel great about that. At the same time, it doesn't mean that I'm a shitty person because I can't run as fast and far as I used to. It doesn't mean that I'm not a good runner or not a good personal trainer because I'm not in tip-top shape.
Oh, for sure.
This is just where I'm at right now. This is where my body's at. Right. Which kind of leads into the third point, which is to neutralize it. Just try to remove the emotional charge from how we see the situation. Right. Like in our client's case from the membership, like She knows that if she stays in self-judgment and self-criticism, it's going to keep her stuck. And me judging myself with my running, that just causes me to put more pressure on myself and force myself to do something that continues to hurt. So in either case, we're not making any progress, right? Sitting in your bed at night, berating yourself for things that you ate. It's only going to make you want to restrict tomorrow to make up for your shortcomings today.
For sure.
Right? So neutralizing is acknowledge what is, what happened, be with the uncomfortable feelings that go along with that, but not allow it to mean anything about you as a person. Right. So yeah, maybe I am starting from scratch with my fitness. I don't love that. I don't love how that feels. It's going to take a long time to rebuild my fitness. And it doesn't mean anything about me as a person. It's just where I'm at right now.
It's so funny because the way you just said that, like any sort of thing that goes on in some people's lives and different friends in the past, I remember giving them basically that advice, but it's like, can you fix it? No, I can't fix the fact that I just overeat. And there's nothing I can do with that. Then forget about it. And I mean, that means, can you fix it or forget it? I mean, it's a little bit more harsh, of course. But I use that in so many different facets of my life. But then with this, it's like, you just sit with it for too long. You don't let it go. So
because we've got a morality attached to, we've got a meaning attached to it, right? The fact that we're not in our best shape. I mean, we just allow that to mean something about us.
Yeah. And even though, like, realistically, I know that that's not the case. But then when you're sitting with your own thoughts, that's another story.
Yeah. So a reminder that not every thought that goes through your brain is true. You don't have to latch on to everyone.
Yeah. 60,000 of them is way too many to consider.
Right. And most of them we let go without a second thought. It's like, oh, that was random and weird. Let that one go.
That's right. Yeah.
But these ones that attach to our worth, we like to play them on repeat.
Yeah. And even when you're not consciously doing that, because I haven't been, right? And I do it for sure. But in my like full consciousness, I know that that's wrong. And it's not connected to my worth. But then when you're, subconsciously, it's just in there somewhere. That's what gets you.
Yeah. So it's about bringing it into your conscious and then deciding, like, I know this is not true.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely. I know that it has nothing to do with my worth. I know that I'm still a good person. I'm still me. I'm still worthy of love and acceptance, regardless of my fitness level. So, bringing that back into your conscious brain.
Yeah, absolutely.
Being neutral, feeling neutral about our circumstances, really our most powerful state when we want to transform something, right? We're not powerful if we're stuck in criticism and judgment. We're helpless. But if we can be neutral about it, then it's like, okay, this is where I'm at. And here's where I want to go. And this is what I have to do. And I'm just going to keep moving forward.
Absolutely. And that's the same with any emotional decision, right? You can't make it with your emotions. You have to be neutral. And then you can make a decision and go forward.
Yeah. So that leads into the fourth and final step, which is to move forward with kindness. So starting where you're at today, and yes, you know that you're going to have to commit to doing some work, but meet your body where it's at and commit to being kind to your body as you move through and do the work and make the progress. It's going to be a whole lot more joyful.
Oh, yeah.
If we're doing it from a kind place.
And that's exactly where I am right now, because that's where I finally got to. I found something that I enjoyed, and I enjoy going. That's like my husband said one day, said, do you ever, like, are you watching the clock while you're there? And I said, not at all. Like, we start winding down and I'm like, oh, excellent, because my muscles are hurting. My butt is burning. It's time to call it a day.
I know you said to me in our session, he asked you, do you ever hate her?
Exactly. And I'm like, what? What do you mean? And I'm like, no. And I'm like, no, she's paying attention for me. And she's not distracted with 18, 25 other people in the room. So it's very good for your ego. It's paying full attention to you all the time.
Yeah. And plus, I'm not going to yell at you and force you
to
do things that I don't want to do.
No, of course not. And not that, like, not even that some other programs yell at you, but they have a fixed thing, and that's what they're doing that day because for the whole class. But one-on-one is exactly what you needed because like one day you might have just, in my case, like still heard it from the day before. And then you're like, well, I've got something for you. And it'll be the same muscles in a different way. Then you leave the one out that hurts and you do
Mhm.
something different. And it's focusing like really fit, like the shoe that fits me, right? Like
Yeah.
you can't just force yourself to do an exercise program or activity that you hate because it doesn't fit,
Hmm.
right?
Yeah. I want you to have a good time.
Yeah,
I want things
absolutely.
to feel good. I want you to enjoy what you're doing and feel the effects of it
Mhm.
so that you feel motivated to keep going.
Oh, for sure. And like the small wins that are like huge, they're not small, right? Like it is a big deal. And when you see them pile up, you're like, oh, fuck yeah, I can do that. Like this is like
Right.
it's not that I'm trying to, you're trying to get past the old you, but you're like, no, this is a new me and it can
Yeah.
also be strong, right?
Yeah. It's a
That's
much
what I,
more empowering place to be in.
oh yeah, feeling strong is very empowering.
Hmm.
Mhm.
Well,
And
and focusing on what feels good and what's
oh,
working and
yeah,
what's happening that's new and exciting. Like that's what we want to focus on rather than comparing ourselves to this old version that's like maybe a year or 10 years in the past. Like that doesn't matter. You can't do anything about that. But
that's right.
it's a lot more empowering if you're noticing those wins you're having today.
Mhm. Absolutely.
And
Instead
that's
of
how I
focusing.
coached our member in the membership too, is like, okay, you can go on all day about how you're not as good a shape as you were before you got sick, but that's not helping you. And when we talked it through, she's like, "Yeah, and I did enjoy being out there for even just those 5 minutes. It felt so good to be outside and get that fresh air, and I was energized, and I had the clarity of thought to get through the rest of my afternoon, and I just found I had focus, and it was really, really good for me to be out there." I said, yeah, it is.
Yeah.
Right.
It's
But
just,
we don't see that when we're stuck in judgment.
yeah, it would be way nicer to focus on that good instead of remembering the past that, you think felt good. Maybe it didn't,
Yeah.
but this day to day right now, it is feeling good, right? That's
Yeah.
what you got to focus on.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I think our default is to see the negative. Like that's just the human
Human
conditioning,
nature.
right?
Yeah.
But if we can train our brain to see what's working, then that's where the wins lie.
Mhm. Absolutely.
So I'll go over those 4 steps again, which is to notice the negative thoughts, notice the judgment, notice the criticism, be curious about it, try to create a bit of distance between you and your thoughts. Name that part of your brain if you wish. And then the second step is to offer yourself some self compassion. Speak to yourself as you would to a friend. Third step is to neutralize the situation, acknowledge what is, be honest about how you feel, but don't let it mean anything about you as a person. And then the fourth step is to move forward with kindness.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Those are good steps. And the part about being honest is probably one of the hardest parts too,
Yeah.
because you can tell yourself you're doing better than you really are about neutralizing those negative thoughts and just be honest to be like, no, okay,
Yeah.
this is what it is. I'm going to name it and I'm going to be faster instead of just shoving it back to screw with me another day.
Yeah. Like things can suck and be okay at the same time.
Oh, for sure.
Like it
Yep.
sucks that I can't run right now.
Mhm.
And if I want to move forward, I'm going to be kind to myself and I'm going to work at it respectfully.
Yeah,
Mhm.
absolutely.
Yeah. Any parting thoughts, Lisa?
I don't think so.
Was this helpful for you? Did you get anything out of this conversation that you can take?
Yes, absolutely. Because you do make me realize I like to think I am fairly a positive person, and I am. I know that I am, but there are those bits that I'm not being honest with myself about. Like if we hadn't talked about specifically, I wouldn't have connected with the, oh yeah, if I like you convince yourself you're hungry before bed and you have something to eat, and then you're like, oh, that was a terrible idea. Why did I do that? That is, I was not being honest with myself about that because like you don't think about it the next day, but you think about it after you do it the next time.
Yeah.
And acknowledging that and giving yourself grace, that's important.
Hmm.
And something I will be working on.
Yes. Yes. Being kind to yourself, compassionate when it happens, and then neutralize, move forward with kindness.
I like it.
Yeah. Good. Well, thanks for being here with me. This was fun.
This is good. It's way easier to talk when you're not trying to breathe at the same time or rather struggling to breathe depending on what we're doing. Or,
Right.
counting. Wait, what am I doing? How long have we been doing this for?
Right. She ends up doing a lot of extra reps because we talk instead of count.
And there's that breathing thing. And you're like, okay, let's just stop and talk for a minute. And then I will pick it up and continue on.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining me on the show. And listeners, if you loved this episode, we'd love to hear from you. Of course, we're just trying this out, this co-hosting thing. We're just trying this out. So we would love to hear what you think. You can send me a message on my social media. And if you listen to the show often, we'd love it if you would help to spread the word. So you can share it on your social media channels or go and leave us a review on Apple Podcasts. That really helps to spread the word about the show. And then if you want to learn more about the What Moves Me membership that we were talking about today, or any of my one-on-one coaching programs, you can find that on my website at radiantvitality.ca. So I'll see you back here next Monday for more Fitspo free motivation. Be well, and here's to your radiant vitality. Thanks for tuning into the Power in Motion podcast today. If you love what you're learning here, then I invite you to take the next step of embodying these concepts into your own life so that you can live your healthiest, happiest life and never again feel held back by your body. Coaching is the fastest, most efficient pathway to taking what you know in your head to actually applying it and seeing results. Whether you're looking to make changes around movement, food, body image, or all three, I'm here to help you nurture a kind, respectful, and trusting relationship with your body so you can feel your very best. Click the link in the show notes to book a free consultation, and together we'll uncover what's getting in the way of you having the results you want. You'll leave this call knowing exactly what you need to work on, and together we'll explore whether one of my coaching offers is a good fit for you. I can't wait to meet you.